I bet you have a real good guess as to what we're talking about today. But before we get into the hoop talk and the Pistons' magnificent Tuesday night, here's my quote for the day. Love is friendship that has caught fire. It is quiet understanding, mutual confidence, sharing and forgiving. It is loyalty through good and bad times. It settles for less than perfection and makes allowances for human weaknesses. From Ann Landers. As always, if you have a quote or mantra you'd like to share with us on this Wednesday, you can do so by putting it on my Facebook page, The Audrey Dahlgren Show, or on Twitter at Dahlgren Show. And don't forget, you can always listen live to each of my episodes by downloading the Spotlight Radio Network One Touch app. So back to the main event. Last night was the 2021 NBA Draft Lottery, and traditionally there is a well-known saying that would apply to this annual event when it comes to the Detroit Pistons, and it's the rich just keep on getting richer, but that was not the case last night. Oh man, it was something. Watching all of the teams fall one by one, and then there was former Piston and future Hall of Famer Ben Wallace, the only man left on the screen representing the Pistons as they won this year's number one overall pick in the NBA draft. Unbelievable, really. I mean, Alex, due to how long it's been since the Pistons had the number one overall pick in the draft, I wondered what everyone else's reaction was to this. What was your reaction last night?
I actually didn't get to see it live. I had my engagement photos last night at 7 that were only supposed to go to 8 o'clock. They didn't go just to 8 o'clock. They ended up going until about 9 o'clock. And I didn't have my phone on me or anything because, like, with the pictures, you didn't want anything in your pockets. So I'm just, once 8 o'clock hit, I'm just sitting there, like, scratching my skin, just waiting to get back to my phone to see what they got. And I about passed out when I found out they actually got the first-round pick. I mean, you talk about it, they haven't had the first-round pick. I mean, the first overall pick. It's not first-round pick. First overall pick since, I think, 1970. And this is also the first time ever that they've moved up based on their initial draft position. So it's just, the stars are aligning. It is just great to be a Pistons fan right now.
Well, and that's the rich kept getting richer mantra where that comes from, is because last year was a perfect example of that. Detroit kind of got screwed over in last year's draft lottery. And so you've seen it play out multiple times before. And it was just like, man, when are the Pistons going to catch a freaking break? And, we're watching this unfold. I mean, I'm watching it unfold in the sports office, and it's just like one by one, they're falling. And then, Ben Wallace is just looking up there, kind of not smug, but, maybe there's a hint of that to him. And, you're watching it go, and all of a sudden, there it is. He's the only man left standing. And so, I mean, Twitter just really exploded too. And just to give you an idea how much this means to the fan base, you've got to listen to this video that was sent to me or put on. I reached out on Twitter this morning, and I wanted to know other people's reaction to it, to see how people, when they first heard it, what they were doing, or maybe just where they were, because it was just one of those moments where you're just never going to forget where you were. And I just think that the enthusiasm for it is just obviously off the charts. And you saw it explode on Twitter last night. And so this one video, though, that was sent to us by Weston, is his name on Twitter. You really need to just, let's listen to it. I mean, because I wish you two could see this video in person. Like this is a part with our show that I wish that it would be able to just so you could see the video itself, because I don't know if it really does it justice. I mean, you'll be able to hear their reaction, which is great, but it's three guys all sitting on the couch. And as soon as Detroit gets the number one pick, they immediately jump up off the couch and all chaos ensues. Take a listen.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Holy fuck.
The second pick will be made by...
Come on, Ben. Let's fuck away.
Whoa! We got the number one! Oh my fucking God! We have the number one.
I pray at the altar of Ben Wallace.
It's been 51
I love you, Ben.
years.
I love you.
51, God.
So yeah, a lot of F-bombs.
No, and that was perfect. No, but if you do want to watch that video, I just retweeted it on the Audrey Dahlgren Show Twitter page. So go check that out if you want to get a look at it. It is I'm sure captures just about what every Pistons fan is feeling in that moment.
Someone tweeted too. So they tweeted with Dwayne Casey. His wife tweeted out a video of all of them watching it. And if you haven't seen that, you should.
I have. No,
okay.
I have. I saw the Dwayne Casey reaction. I mean, that makes me feel like there might be a player in his mind that he was hoping to get by the reaction. But no, that you gotta love it. It is good stuff.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, check out that video. Watch it because they jump up off the couch, and Ben Wallace too. I think he must be the good luck charm. He should represent and sit in for every draft lottery.
Yeah, no kidding.
But that was the general theme of people running around, screaming and shouting at their TV. But this also this other one by Richie Bands said he was so happy he jumped out of his car yelling only to lock his keys in the car. So that's not good.
Yeah, talk about a buzzkill.
Yeah, I know, right? You're on this huge high, and then you're like, shit, I just locked my keys in my car. Well, it really has been a long time coming. It is the first time since 1970 that the Pistons will pick number 1 overall. And Alex, you may have heard this by now, but did you hear who the number 1 pick back then was 51 years ago?
I can't remember, no.
Bob Lanier.
Yes, that's right.
From
That's
St.
right.
Bonaventure.
Yes.
And he went on to have a great career. And so the top prospect in this year's draft, which will be taking place on July 29th, at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, is Oklahoma State's Cade Cunningham. Everybody's talking about him. You know, he's the revered number 1, gotta have him kind of guy, star player who, according to ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski, right after the announcement, after the Pistons had learned that they got the number 1 pick last night, overall pick last night, Adrian Wojnarowski was on, with Rachel Nichols, and he said the only that Cunningham, per his agent, apparently he told, Wojnarowski this, that he's only going to visit with one team prior to the draft, and that team is now the Detroit Pistons. That's it.
Yeah, that's wild. No, that's actually funny because James Edwards was just talking on his podcast that he posted earlier today, basically just talking about that, like how the difference perceptionally from a perception standpoint between Cade and the rest of the group is a lot bigger than what scouts kind of have it drawn up for no other reason that Cade has done a great job of marketing himself as the first overall pick throughout this entire session, throughout this entire time. And that he thinks that's a big reason why the public just has kind of shoot him in as the number 1 is just because of how well he's marketed himself in that respect.
Yeah, and he is 6'8", 220 pounds, a guard/forward. He turns 20 in September, and over 27 games with the Cowboys, he averaged a little over 20 points, 6.2 rebounds, and 3.5 assists per game, while shooting 43.8% from the field and 40% from 3. And he obviously does stick out as the guy. Now, the other guys that general manager Troy Weaver could look at are USC's Evan Mobley and Gonzaga's Jalen Suggs. Now, I told you earlier, I'm more high on Jalen Suggs. You are more high on Cade Cunningham, which is great. Everybody has their own opinion, and that's what makes it awesome. But that's the other part, too, yes, that makes it awesome is now you get to wonder and see what is Weaver going to do with this pick. He did say last night during his post-draft media availability that they realistically are going to take a deep dive into 5 guys in this year's draft. So you'd imagine it would be Cade. It has to be Jalen.
Mm-hmm.
Evan probably is up there. But then you wonder, who are the 2?
Well, I think for sure the one that gets thrown in is Jalen Green. That's a name that a lot of us forget about because he took, the G League route. He wasn't in the college basketball scene. And that's part of the reason, too, not to get off topic of why I'm so in favor of these kids going the college basketball route is instead of, the pro or overseas or G League type of thing. It's just from a market standpoint and branding standpoint. Obviously you know who Jalen Green is, but he doesn't have the same type of luster as his talent, I think, suggests. And I think he went the college route and his face was in, the scene for an entire year, he's probably, you know, talked about with Cade Cunningham as opposed to kind of the outlier of the big three. And will that hurt his career? No, but from a branding standpoint, and you're talking about money from other sources, endorsements and things like that, I think he sold himself a little bit short. Now he can obviously make up for that with a good career or a good start, but I think Jalen Green is definitely he's drawing comparisons from Kobe Bryant from a lot of people that I've read. So I think Jalen Green's definitely going to be tossed into that number 4. It'll be that 5th one that I'm not sure on, to be honest.
My stepdad today, he was like, Luka Garza. I'm like, what?
No, please no.
I'm like, where did that
Maybe in the
come
second
from?
round.
I know. I'm like, yeah, you don't want to waste the number 1 overall pick on Luka Garza. No offense, Jim or Luka, but you know he is a beast. You know, don't get you wrong. But yeah. So anyway, I thought that was funny. You know. Yeah, it is. We're going off of what you had to say there about the accessibility portion, because if you think about it, Cunningham, the Cowboys were a 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. We all know what Gonzaga went on to do in the NCAA tournament and the exposure that Jalen Suggs was able to have throughout that whole tournament and the season in general, with them being the number 1 team in the country. I mean, yeah, think about the exposure that he was able to get, or that guys like that do get when they go the college route.
Exactly. Are we talking about Cade Cunningham in the same way if he went and played in the G League and nobody watches a game? You hear about how good he is, and you know the talent, you see the highlights and things like that, but it's not real to the public and to the common public of sports fans unless you go that college route. And I think he didn't make any money. Well, he didn't make any money legally. We're not going to speculate on that, but
right.
He didn't.
Don't make assumptions.
Yes, he didn't make any for sure money, going the college route. But man, is he going to make a ton just off of his branding and his name and it's like guys like Zion too. Like if he goes the G League route, are we talking about Zion the same way? I think there's just so much more for the future of from a professional standpoint. Going the college route, I think it benefits you, not even financially, just from that standpoint of just getting yourself marketed.
There's so much to be said about that, and I think that if you talk to any former collegiate basketball player who also went on to have a professional career, or even didn't have a professional career, whatever they're doing in life now, because of what they were able to do for playing in college, it set them up pretty well in the future.
No doubt.
Well, one of those guys is Greg Kelser. He last night on Bally Sports Detroit, he and Johnny Kane did this Facebook, YouTube live reaction after the pick was announced, and he asked him a pretty interesting question. It kind of goes off to what we're talking about. Johnny Kane wanted to ask Gregory Kelser, Special K, if he believes the Pistons should pick at number 1 overall, who should they go with? Well, anyways, we'll pick it up there with this little snippet of video.
Greg Kelser, Troy Weaver gives you a call, says, Special K, look, man, I'm torn. Where do we go? We know what we have in place. I need I want your opinion. Who do we go with? Give me your 2 cents.
You want me to help him with this pick, huh?
I want you to, at least help me make the pick. What would you do?
I would go with Cunningham. I would go with the one that most people are saying is the best player. Yeah. The one that's ready to go. The one with the best potential to turn a franchise around immediately. He seems to be that guy. I don't think Troy's going to need my help, though.
Hey, you never know. Troy might be watching right now. I don't know. I'm sure he will be at some point. But, no, that's good. I like that. I think a lot of fans would love to hear that. Again, whoever they decide to go with. I'll say this. We don't want to get too I don't want to, romanticize the whole thing with Troy. But all I'm saying is you've been following the NBA much longer than I. Obviously, you played it. But I've been around professional sports for a long time. And it is rare for a general manager to come in, and I'm not saying make wholesale changes because I've seen that before, but to see them play out and to work as well, right, as they have. So they went out and obviously did well in free agency with Plumlee and
Grant.
And then obviously with the draft picks, you have 2 NBA All Rookies and Isaiah Stewart and Sadiq Bey. So I'm just saying, at this point, he hasn't given me any reason to say, well, let's just see what he's going to do. I mean, his basketball IQ is through the roof. So in your opinion, what is the biggest area of need for the Pistons? You know, because in other sports, you always say best player available no matter what. But what do you think the areas of need are for this team?
Scoring and a scorer with the great ball handle, a guy who you can put it in his hands and say, go get me a bucket. Yeah. That's you can't have enough of those guys. And as we see, you probably need 2, if not 3, to be able to go far in the playoffs. Now, Jeremy Grant has made tremendous strides this year, proving that he can score at the NBA level and can score big. For Jeremy, I'd like to see him become a little bit more of a facilitator in terms of getting his teammates involved. And I think he'll work on that. He understands how important that is. You know, you 23 points a game is nice, but only 2 assists. As many times as you have the ball in your hands, that's a total. That's a figure that can rise. I'd like to see him up around at least 5 assists. But the player that you want, the Pistons just need another guy like that, another explosive offensive talent that can get them 20 points a night or more. Sort of like what we're seeing with Dallas and Luka Doncic. You know, who knew he would be this good? Trae Young, who knew he would be this good this soon? Mm-hmm. So this is where the league is. This is what you win with. This is what you score with on a nightly basis. That's the greatest need.
No doubt about it. Scoring, great ball handler. Go get me a bucket. A walking bucket, as Gabe Brown likes to say. You know, and you're seeing that too. One guy that I think of for the Phoenix Suns, and he's made a tremendous impact when it comes to being an offensive threat like that, Devin Booker.
Yep.
And so this is a guy, and Cade Cunningham, from all the stats and everything that just kind of laid out a little bit earlier in the show, if he's averaging 20 points, granted that's college versus pro, but he's averaging 20 points, 40% from 3, that's a shooter.
Yeah.
He's a shooter.
And 20 points also, yeah, that's college, not pro, but it's also in 8 less minutes too. So you got to factor that in. Yeah, I mean, I'm on the standpoint of I'm going to trust in Weaver and what he's going to do. Because, I mean, with the last year that he's put together with, hitting on all 4 draft picks, I mean, obviously the consensus is still kind of out on Killian, but I really, truly believe that ultimately he's going to be probably the best player in that draft class, if not, right up there with it. So hitting on all 4, I mean, you have to be in the mindset where whatever he does, you kind of got to have faith in it. And I think any of those 4 prospects, if he decides that's the one that's the best, then that's the one that I'm going to decide, or I believe will be the best. And until I see otherwise, that's where I'll be at.
Yeah, and this is a massive pick for not only the Pistons, but for Weaver.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's almost more pressure. Exactly, because I mean, it almost been a lot easier and safer to be at the 4th, have the 4th pick and just take whichever one's left, and then there's not as much backlash because now if you don't take the best of that 4, there's ultimately going to be plenty of it, and the safest pick would probably be Cade because I mean, if you do that, I don't think anybody's going to negatively say anything about that because I think that's just kind of the consensus pick. But if you take Jalen Green or you take Jalen Suggs at number 1, or you trade back and you try to get one of them plus another pick, and that doesn't work out, you're in muddy water for sure. Yeah,
that'd be not good. Well, it'll too be his 2nd season as he tries to restore the franchise back to its championship glory years. And it's another key piece. This is another key piece in doing that, which I think that's why, too, everybody just exploded with excitement because they know that this is what the Pistons have been waiting for when it comes to this rebuild.
Am I coming through? All right, everybody's so excited. Well, I mean, too, it's just because it just feels like the stars are aligning. Like everything went so smoothly in this last year when you're talking about a rebuild. I mean, you really couldn't draw it up any better. Like the way that they obviously they put themselves in position to have the best chance at the first overall pick, but while doing so, you still saw tons of growth from your young core. They were competitive in these games. You don't feel like you're that far away.
Right.
And then you get the first overall to kind of put the cherry on top. So, like, as a fan, like, it feels like it's been a long time coming, and it's finally, you're finally seeing it. And it's just, exactly, the excitement is, I think, fully warranted.
Yeah, and even though they finished 20-52, granted, terrible record, but a lot of those games, as you were mentioning, they were in those games.
Yeah,
they were competitive games. It wasn't like they were laying down and dying.
No, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but for point differential they have an overall point differential stat, and the Pistons were obviously the second worst team in the league, but they had there was like 9 teams, I think, or maybe even 10 teams that had a worse point differential than the Pistons. And that's with having 8 to 10 more wins. So that just shows that even though that they're losing game after game after game, you go check the box scores, they're losing by 3, they're losing by 1, they're losing by 6, and if you actually watch the games, they're in it in the last 5 minutes in almost every. I mean, probably 72 out of the 82 games with 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. Like, they're there. Like, there's a chance that they can win. Maybe they're not winning, but they're in contention too. So I mean, yeah, this is a big piece that they can move it forward, and let's just hope that they capitalize on it.
Absolutely. Fun times in Motown, that's for sure. And wow, when's the last time we said that?
It's been a while.
A long time. All right. Well, speaking of good times and good vibes, East Lansing High School alum and University of Florida junior Taylor Manson has punched her ticket to the 2020 Summer Games in Tokyo. I had the pleasure of speaking with her yesterday for quite some time. So we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, we're going to be joined, and I'm going to let you, we're going to jump right into that conversation with her.
Thinking of a new air conditioning unit for your home? Hi, Peggy Doty with Doty Mechanical. A new Carrier high-efficiency AC unit will lower your energy usage and increase your home comfort. Current Carrier Cool Cash offers and available utility rebates mean your savings have never been better.
Call Doty Mechanical today at 327-7777 or visit us at dotymechanical.com for your free estimate. For heating and cooling, the names to know, Doty Mechanical and Carrier. Turn to the experts.
Peloton is getting into the wearable business. Bloomberg says the workout equipment and app company is working up a digital heart rate armband. Device will pair wirelessly with Peloton's bike and treadmills, along with phones and everything else. The heart rate band will be able to capture the intensity of workouts, providing users more accurate data. Zoom is adding a new field for pronouns that'll appear in parentheses next to people's names in calls. They'll also be visible under people's names on their profile cards. People can decide whether they want their pronouns to be shared in meetings and webinars. What a concept, a little chit-chat before you fall in love. Tinder's new Hot Takes feature allows first-time users to chat with each other before they match. A timer during the session will tick down, allowing users to choose whether it expires and move on or complete a match. Also coming to the dating site, the option to add videos to your profile and an Explore tab where users can find people based on shared interests. Tech Report, Larry Olson, NBC News Radio.
Live across the Great Lakes State, you're connected to Michigan's most engaging and influential radio and television program, Michigan's Big Show, starring Michael Patrick Shields.
Great to be with you, Michael Patrick. You're the show I would want to be on. Forget those other ones.
Michael Patrick, it's always a pleasure to be on the air with the King of the Airwaves. Thanks for having me on again.
That's a very good question.
Those are all great questions. Good morning.
Thank you. Michigan's Michael Patrick Shields.
The White House admits it may not reach President Biden's goal of getting 70% of the adult population partially vaccinated against COVID-19 by July 4th. Meantime, Dr. Anthony Fauci is sounding the alarm over the rise of the Delta variant.
The Delta variant is currently the greatest threat in the U.S. to our attempt to eliminate COVID-19.
Dr. Fauci says 20% of all new cases in the U.S. are from the variant first found in India. That's double the rate from around 2 weeks ago. It's been a month since the FDA cleared the COVID vaccine for teenagers, yet most are remaining on the sidelines. 14-year-old Angelina Allegrini got the shot, and she says the key to vaccine outreach among kids her age is social media.
Social media probably is a big influencer.
Health updates. Sarah Lee Kessler, NBC News Radio.
I'm Tony Cuthbert with your Spotlight Sports Update. The Pistons won the NBA lottery and will have the number 1 overall pick in next month's draft. Detroit has the top selection for the first time since 1970 when they took Hall of Fame center Bob Lanier. Oklahoma State guard Cade Cunningham is projected to go first in the draft, which will be held July 29th at Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Staying in the association, DeAndre Ayton slammed home an alley-oop with less than a second remaining as the Suns stunned the Clippers 104-103 in Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals. Ayton finished with 24 points and 14 boards to help the Suns to a 2-0 series lead. Tonight, the Hawks visit the Bucks for Game 1 of the Eastern Conference Finals. And the Tigers beat the St. Louis Cardinals 8-2 last night at Comerica Park. In this afternoon series finale, Matt Manning makes his second start for Detroit while St. Louis counters with John Gant.
Welcome back to the Audrey Dahlgren Show.
You want to win, don't you? Well, I think I'd really rather try to beat him honestly.
The Spotlight Radio Network.
On Sunday night at historic Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon at the U.S. Olympic Trials, Taylor Manson, she thought she qualified. Well, she did qualify. She didn't think she qualified. She did qualify after picking up a PR, which is a personal best in the 400-meter run with a time of 50.79 seconds. She beat her PR from a week ago prior at the NCAA Outdoor Championships, which was also at Hayward Field in Eugene, Oregon. She ran 51 seconds, so she cut some time off there. But after Zooming with her yesterday, she revealed that it was apparently already a done deal that she was going to Tokyo to compete in the 2020 Summer Games before the race even started. Pretty interesting. How is that? Well, it's where we're going to pick up our conversation with Taylor as she describes what it's like to qualify for the Olympics and compete for Team USA for the first time ever in her career.
Well, congratulations, number one, on qualifying for Tokyo. That has to be such an exciting moment for you and for your family. And so walk me through, I guess, when you had first initially found out that you were going to be going and representing Team USA.
Okay, well, thank you, first of all. So after the race, they took us back to the recovery area where they take the athletes after they run to get their gear, like not their gear, but their belongings that they brought in to check in. And I did not know at all if I made the team or not, because typically it's top 6. There were rumors about maybe top 8 possibly going because of the mixed relay, but like that wasn't something that I knew of prior to coming. So I wasn't sure. And then about 5 minutes after, I'm like recovering, catching my breath and stuff. And 2 of the coaches that are on the staff for the U.S. team, track team, they approached me like congratulations, we're going to take all you guys to Tokyo and you'll be like on the relay. So I was like very like surprised. I was really happy and just grateful. But come to find out, my head coach, Coach Holloway, who's also the men's U.S. Olympic head coach, knew the whole time that I was going to be on it, but he didn't want to spoil it for me.
What did you say to him afterwards? You were like, hey, coach.
I was actually happy he didn't tell me because like I ran so much harder because I didn't know. But yeah, like they already knew, and it was just kind of like, wow, like all these other people that I knew that like professionals, like he told them, like they're like, we knew the whole time, but we couldn't tell you. I'm like, oh wow. Yeah. So it was kind of cool. It was funny, but it was a surreal moment because I'm just like, wow, it's actually happening. So
how big of a dream has this been for you? Because when you mention it's surreal that it's happening. So how long have you been maybe wanting to accomplish something like this?
I've been wanting to do this ever since I remember watching the 2008 Olympics. And that's around the time I first started track. So I was like I was really new to the sport, it was fresh, but like I remember watching time, which is Ross in the 400 and then just Team USA and like Allison Felix growing up. And ever since then, I was just like, I want to go to the Olympics. And it's always been like a dream of mine.
What's it like too to be able to have a PR on Sunday? Because as you mentioned, you were, fighting to make this spot, even though you had already locked it up, but at the time you didn't know it. But what is it about Eugene and racing at Hayward Field that brings out the best and can, help you accomplish a PR like you were able to do?
Honestly, it's a very historical place. They call it Tracktown, USA. Like, if you know track, if you don't, like, this is like home of like Steve Prefontaine, which is a big distance runner. He held like a lot of American records in a lot of distance races. And it's just like the energy in the stadium is just kind of like unmatched. I haven't been in a stadium quite like it before. I've been to like pretty good stadiums, but in the US, it's probably one of the best. Mm-hmm. And like running my PR, especially a week ago, I ran it at National, the NCAAs, and then doing it again the final day and the final, just like perfect timing, I feel like. So I was like grateful for it to happen. Like my first time getting into the 50 seconds, and even like before I even found out I was on the team, like I was just happy to like run my PR, and I was just satisfied. And then it was just like the cherry on top to find out I made the team. So.
Yeah, absolutely. No, yeah. Hayward Field is very historic. Steve Prefontaine is iconic, as you mentioned. And so what else too about, I guess, that track, the allure of it for people that aren't familiar with track and field?
Okay, so like typically it's like they probably never seen like they probably have, even if you don't know track, you've probably seen the old Oregon Stadium, but the new one is just like, it's just different. I know overseas when I was in Finland, like a lot of like European countries, they have big track stadiums. They're like the size of football stadiums, and like, cause it's really big over there. But the United States, it's like you have like college stadiums, you have like big ones, but there's nothing quite like Oregon's new track. And it's like, it just reminds me of like a actual stadium, and it's like putting track like on a new level. So if you ever haven't seen it, or if you have, just like look up a picture on Google. It's just like really like breathtaking.
Yeah, it does. It's mind-boggling. I mean, like when you first see the aerial shots, because obviously they showed a lot of the trials on TV, and you're just like, wow, that's in America? That's because you don't see that over here, as you're mentioning. Tell me too how you got recruited, or how you decided to end up at the University of Florida. Who else was recruiting you, out of East Lansing High School?
Out of high school, gratefully, like I was so thankful that I had like a lot of choices to choose from, but I narrowed it down to my top 5 of being University of Florida, Florida State, University of Alabama, Texas A&M, and LSU. And eventually it got down to my top 2 being Texas A&M and Florida, and then I don't know, it was just a different feeling during Florida's visit, even like the home visit and like the official visit, like being on campus and like being around the team and like the coaches just felt like right. Like any athlete who's taken like an official visit and you like get that feeling that they talk about, it was just there. And even my parents, after I committed to the school, not before, but they mentioned how they even got the same feeling, which is crazy. So it just like everything worked out, and I'm so glad that I chose this school.
What have you learned from competing or just going to school there? And in terms of how have you grown from East Lansing High School to now at the University of Florida?
I've grown tremendously. Like I'm more on top of my stuff in like a good way. I'm never slacking off like on homework. I won't like procrastinate as much as I used to procrastinate. But working wise, my work ethic has always been there. But I've just become like more determined, especially the closer I get to like my goals. It's just like I'm getting closer, and I'm like, I'm this close, so like why stop now? So just the environment, the people I surround myself around is just all been becoming like shaping me into the woman that I am now.
And how did you two know, or like walk us through the process of all of the hours and what it's taken for you to get to this stage where you are going to be, I mean, you're considered to be one of the best in your sport now, that you are going to be going to Tokyo in the world, or in the United States, I should say, opportunity to be the best in the world when you get to Tokyo. And so walk us through that process of all that you've had to do in order to get your body in the shape that it's in, and just maybe the mental side too.
So even starting like off season, especially during COVID, I mean, it's always been a goal of mine starting from the last past Olympics. But I was working out like over quarantine when we didn't even really know what the season was gonna look like. I remember like I was at indoor nationals 2019 in Albuquerque, New Mexico, when everything happened like the day before like our nationals, and we just got sent home. You know, I was like quite sure yet like what was going to happen. So I just remember like just training and like doing plyometrics like in the football stadium, waking up early, jogging, and then like going through like summer B training and fall training. It's just like it takes a lot of like self-control and focus for sure, because it's easy to just like, no, I won't do that today, especially when it's not required to like go out, work out and stuff like that. So I just was pushing even during the off season and just working tremendously hard. And then when it came to like my diet, I actually watched a documentary on Netflix that came out probably last fall. I forgot the exact name, but I think it was like Strongest on the Planet or something. But they discussed like how some of the strongest animals like are vegetarians, like they don't eat red meat and stuff like that. And it just got me thinking. It also talked about how red meat like can clog like your bloodstream and make it harder for oxygen to travel through this, that, and the other. That also affects like your recovery for athletes and like working out. So like I started to change my diet a little bit. I still eat meat, but I eat like salmon and like try to stay away from red meat. So like chicken and just like healthier. I also sometimes like order HelloFresh or something. But thankfully we have a training table for student athletes, so it has like healthier options and stuff like that. But I think that has helped me a lot as well. I physically like feel better or cleaner in a way. And then when it comes to like the mental aspect, I talked to a sports psychologist. So like I talked to them about anything that's bothering me, but like Dr. Jamie, I talked to her about mental blocks with track, how I'm feeling leading up to meets, and how to like keep my stress lowered, because I also found out how stress can play a factor into lactic acid and produce that in your body, which if anybody has ever run the 400, like lactic acid builds up and that's what gets you at the end. So like I try to keep my stress down, and I talk to her about things that may be in my mind. So it's all like a whole process, and I feel like making those changes that I did this year has helped me tremendously.
You're mastering your craft, sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much. So yeah, that lactic acid thing can be real rough.
It can be very
not fun. Well, that's really cool to hear that. And so what too, I mean, has been the response from people back in Michigan now that they've been finding out, or they found out that you've qualified for Tokyo? Because I'm not going to lie, around here, I mean, because we are the CBS station in Lansing, I mean, it's blowing up around here. So I can only imagine how much maybe your phone has been blowing up with congratulatory text messages and messages in general.
It has been honestly like shocking, like in a good way though, like because like a lot of people keep up with like me and my like during the regular season of track and like just college, but like to even see people that like I've never met before or like haven't talked to like in a long time like congratulate me and like be actually like happy for me is like it's a really good feeling, and it makes me feel like really like proud of myself, and like I accomplished something really like big, and I really appreciate all the messages from everyone. I haven't really gotten around to like respond to everyone yet, but every now and then I'll take a break from my phone because it kind of is a lot. In the beginning it was kind of a lot, and I had to like kind of zone out a little bit with my phone, like on do not disturb, but I'm trying to get around to everyone, and I appreciate all the support from back home.
Yeah, I can imagine it's been blowing up. You are busy too. You have a lot to keep your mind focused on. What too are the next steps? You mentioned it a little bit earlier, but what are the next steps now for you when it comes to getting ready to head to Tokyo?
So my next step would be, so I leave to go home, to Gainesville tomorrow, and we're going to start working out around
those messages.
Yeah. I probably should put that on Do Not Disturb right now. I did not.
Okay.
But so I'm just gonna go back home and like train in Gainesville, but I'm off for the rest of the week. I had a little jogging stride shakeout today, but Monday I start working back out again, like regularly before we came to Eugene, and just focusing on that, listening to my coaches, getting treatment, and just main thing is recovery. And like I might possibly get some more acupuncture appointments, something like that before I leave. But yeah, just staying on top of it, staying focused for the long season. So, and hopefully sometime in between there, come home to Lansing, Michigan, and like be with my family for like a weekend or something. And then right before going to Tokyo.
The recovery part is fascinating in a sense, because there's so much that goes into it now that I think a lot of people aren't aware of. You mentioned acupuncture. What else do you do to recover, especially when you're performing on the level that you are at?
We usually do like acupuncture, like maybe like when we come back in between meets, but since like I've been in Oregon for the past 2.5 weeks, I've been the main thing is drinking a lot of water to flush out the impurities and any lactic that's in the body. That's a big thing right there, is water. So I've been just drinking that a lot. Getting my sleep, I try to get between 8 to 9 hours. If not 7.5, but like between 7 and 9 hours are pretty good for me. And then I'll do ice baths. We have these Normatec boots that I use. Well, most of the team, a lot of collegiate athletes, if anybody is familiar with that, they probably heard of those before or seen people using them before. And like, oh yeah, also getting a flush out by our trainers after we run to like flush out any lactic as well. But those are like the top things that I've done and that I currently do. I sometimes, if I am able, will go to like cryotherapy, which is like some areas have it, some don't, but it's like you're in this chamber with like nitrogen. It's like for 3 minutes. It's pretty cool. If anybody ever has the opportunity, I would suggest doing that, because I don't like ice baths, but I only use ice baths for like a last resort.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And how do you think too that when you get to Tokyo, I mean, do you think that being around that competition and stuff, do you imagine that you'll have another PR, or what's your goal time, I guess, now that you have qualified?
So I won't be doing the open in Tokyo, only the 4x4. So I won't have another opportunity to PR my open event. But when it comes to the relay and just running my best and just running a fast leg for my team, I think honestly just being in that atmosphere and around all like these great athletes and everybody like being focused, I would like naturally with the adrenaline, I would like run really, really good. And I have no doubts that I'll probably run the fastest I ever have, especially on a relay. So I'm just excited, and like anything is possible.
Do you know yet if you're going to be like the lead leg, the last leg, second leg, third? Probably that'll get worked out later.
Yeah, I don't know that yet, but I mean, I've ran just about every single leg, so I'm comfortable wherever they place me. So I'm just excited. Hopefully I'll be in the mix, because this whole year I've been pop off leg, the first leg, and it's really similar to an open 400. So I kind of want to just be in the middle, so I'm not like getting in blocks, and like it's kind of more intense to me.
Yeah. Oh yeah, coming out of the blocks, and there's a whole technique that comes with coming out of the blocks as well. So it's
like, and you set the tone for the rest of the race, so you can't really no room for error nowhere.
Exactly. Well, Taylor, I just have one more question for you then. If you had to think about all the messages maybe that you've received, what's been one of the best ones?
One of the best. That's kind of tough.
It would be tough, yeah.
I enjoyed all of them, but honestly, the best one, the most memorable was, well, top two, I'll be talking to, my grandparents and like Coach Bibbs, especially, like letting him know like what all has been going on here. I mean, he watched it, so he kind of seen before like we talked on the phone. But then the best moment for me was calling my brother on FaceTime. Like literally, he was the first person I talked to, and like a minute after they told me I was gonna be on the team, I called him up and we were on FaceTime, and I told him like I'm going to Tokyo, because he didn't know either. And we just kind of like started crying tears of joy together, and it was just kind of like a surreal moment, and like I really enjoyed that moment.
A once-in-a-lifetime moment for sure. That was Taylor Manson, East Lansing High School alum and University of Florida junior, who is headed to the Olympics for the very first time this summer. After talking with her yesterday, one of the parts, or the part that I found to be really fascinating, was when she went into her diet and how some of the strongest animals are vegetarians and how they don't eat red meat, and so she's cut that out, and how it makes her feel so much better and so much cleaner. You hear people talk about that all the time, how, you don't want to eat red meat, don't eat a lot of red meat, it's not good for you. But, I mean, when somebody who is an Olympic athlete comes forward and says that, and says how, it could have ramifications on your bloodstream and all of that kind of stuff, I don't know, it just really, makes you pay attention, and it was really cool to hear.
Yeah, and I just love that type of attention to detail in nutrition is starting to become way more popular and brought to the forefront, because it was always, I mean, even when I felt like when I was growing up, nutrition never really got emphasized at all. I mean, it was the training, it was your workouts, it was the things you did, but what you put in your body just kind of got abandoned. And I even say going through Division II and JUCO college baseball, it still really wasn't put towards the forefront. So I'm really glad and just happy to see that is starting to, become more popular and more normal to emphasize diet and how much that contributes to your overall success as an athlete. It really is huge. I mean, yeah, obviously working out is a big part of it, but if you're not putting that stuff in your body that you need to put into it, the workout's basically a waste.
Yeah, if you're not fueling yourself correctly, and that's something too that I wish that I would have probably done a better job of as well growing up in running.
Oh yeah,
because I mean, our coaches always preached to us, and I felt like I ate really clean. I always packed my lunch every day. I didn't eat like the school lunch, and I always made sure, because I was so focused on eating the right stuff. But I think, as you're mentioning, as time has went on, the years have went on, people are really starting to understand, have a better idea of what it really takes to fuel your body so that you can compete at the best level.
And like you were saying, you were putting in the clean stuff, but was it the right stuff? And is it the right amount? So there's just so much that goes into it. I'm just glad that is now being recognized more. I mean, like we just hear about it with Michigan State football and their nutrition program, how much that has already catapulted a lot of their athletes into becoming, physically more gifted than they were prior. I mean, we saw those pictures of who was it? Jalen. I think it was Jalen Nate. Who posted that picture on Twitter?
It was
Naylor and
Naylor and
the Western
Reed.
Yes, Jaden Reed. Yeah, they both and they look like they stepped out of the Captain America transformation chamber. And even that's only just a few months of emphasizing that completely. So I can't say it enough. I'm just glad that we're finally there, and that's being talked about and emphasized almost more than the working out itself.
The other part too that I have found to be fascinating, and the more people that I've had on the show, the more athletes who compete at an extremely high level, every single one of them has brought up how they talk to a sports psychologist. And that is also something I think with any sport that you're seeing a surge in that I don't feel like was really talked about 10 years ago or so, 10, 15 years ago, and how managing stress, and her bringing up how stress can build lactic acid in your body, and how, like I said, a lot of them have mentioned how they've been speaking to a sports psychologist. So that is somebody who I'm going to have a sports psychologist on the show.
I would love that. That'd be awesome.
Because it's really crazy or interesting to think that they're shifting over to this mindset of, and when did this become a super popular thing?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they've had it. I mean, they've been around for a long time, but I just think that it's another thing that's coming to the forefront when it comes to sport. And being
and I think that part of that too is just kind of the overall from society standpoint, just the overall importance of mental health and really in seeing how much that affects our day-to-day life and how we perform and what we do. So yeah, I mean, the nutrition, the mental side of all this stuff, I mean, it's very, very important, and it's just, I wouldn't say just now, but it's definitely becoming more and more emphasized and important to all athletes.
Yeah, because every university seems to have a sports psychologist. And even the pros, they go out and they seek help on their own to have, somebody kind of guide them. And I find that to be fascinating. So we are going to have in the near future a sports psychologist come on the show because I just am so curious about all that. And thought it was pretty funny that her messages kept dinging during the interview. Just goes to show you how popular of a girl she is right now. But it makes a lot of sense. And this is also cool. So for the Olympics this year, they have come up with this new mixed relay event. They're going to do it in track and field, and it's also going to be done in swimming. It's going to make its Olympic debut in Tokyo. It's 2 women and 2 men racing against each other. And it's actually a big reason why Manson qualified. It was what she was speaking to. And, but I just think it's going to be cool to see these relays in both swimming and track and field.
So are you big with do you watch all the track events and stuff like that during the Olympics? Is that your favorite part of it?
Oh yeah. You should have asked Nick on Friday when they were doing the 15,000 meter run. Abby Cooper
just locked in.
I was like, I could not stop. I could not turn my head away from it.
So I mean, not to pile on or anything or diss your sport, but for me, it's very similar to like NASCAR.
Oh,
where, but here's my thing. No.
Okay.
From this standpoint, where I can't really watch it and bring any, but I appreciate what they're doing. Like I think it's so impressive, but I just can't really get myself emotionally invested into watching it because I mean, I can't even the NASCAR racing. People love to throw shade at that, but to step in those races to actually go through those would be absolutely insane. I mean, you're flying at a speed that most of us can't even comprehend, but you're doing it for just hours and hours. So like, yeah, I don't have any interest of it, but my respect for that sport and for the drivers is, skyrockets. And it's the same with these track athletes because I understand what it would take really to get to their level. And I know that I don't have that in me at all. So it's just like, I definitely appreciate and I respect everything that they do. But from the same standpoint, I don't know what it is. I just cannot get myself to watch and emotionally invest. And maybe that'd be a lot different because I mean I say the same thing with the people telling me about baseball, but they have never played it. So yeah, but I'm sure from your standpoint, there are things that you're looking at and watching that would just go completely over my head.
Yeah, I mean, so for example, in that 5,000 meter prelim when Abby Cooper was competing in it, the part that I find it to be so enthralling. Number one, because it's the sport I grew up doing, and I had aspirations to run at USC, run at the collegiate level, and then maybe potentially try to do something on the Olympic level. But I got injured, and I had 2 really bad stress fractures in my right hip and my right shin, and it kind of just derailed my whole mindset. And so I find it so enthralling, because they're doing something that when you've done it and you know how hard it is and the type of mental stamina and physical strength that it really takes to be able to run a race competitively at that level like they are doing in all of the events in track and field. But, I pay more attention to the distance events because that's what I love. And so, but like to see her, she set the tone, she set the pace. And as the race went on, she was like, all right, I have a goal, I have a mission. She wanted to get that Olympic qualifying time. And so she physically had to pull herself away from the pack and find another gear to not only, I guess, she just had to find something within her to really just like propel herself to win that race and qualify. And she did. And it's just the mind and the body is fascinating.
Yeah, you know what's going through between the ears and like she was bringing up to like the lactic acid build up towards the end of the race and how much that becomes a factor and things like that. Like I just can't even relate to it. So like watching from your perspective and understanding what's going through their heads, what they're trying to do, and what their legs are feeling like in that time. It's just definitely brings another level to it.
Right, in the last 400 too of that race in the 5,000 meters is like you can't even feel your legs. It's jello. You're just pure jello. So anyway, well, That does it for today's show. By the way, the Olympics start July 23rd. Big Ten Football Media Days is July 22nd and 23rd. And now with the Pistons getting the number 1 overall pick, the draft is July 29th. So the end of July is going to be a very exciting time. Have a tremendous day.
With KB, I've spent my career building relationships and connecting people. My work with local and state chambers, state government, and now the life of an entrepreneur with my business, KB Collaborative. The mission of my podcast is to bring out the best in people, to highlight their accomplishments, work experiences, and to challenge them to recollect their greatest leadership and life lessons. Listeners are going to undoubtedly feel that they're having a cup of coffee with an old friend. We've got CEOs,